place our player on the wing and start to think about how we're attacking the basket. Now, a lot of times when I see players work on their finishing, they start to their drive and they push the ball ahead and they basically chase it. Now, I believe they do that because they've always been taught that there's a correct way to finish, and that would be off of their left foot. And because they've always been told to do one dribble drives, they just naturally learn over time how to throw the ball out, chase it, grab it later, and finish. Now, there's times for pushing the ball out ahead of us, but it cannot be a dominant habit. You need to understand as a player the concept of a dribble step, your ability to dribble with the motion of your step. So if I was to do that same drive, and I can dribble with what my first step will be, I'm still going to be able to get to the basket, because it's not going to be the ball that takes me there. It's going to be my feet. And so if I push the ball ahead out and chase it, for instance, I'm going to take the same number of steps. The problem is there's going to be a defender and help side here and a defender and help side there that could possibly get to that basketball. But if I can dribble with my steps, now this will be the same number, I'm going to pound it down. I still have my 2 steps, but the ball was always protected by my body. That's what a dribble step concept is. So we're going to start with our drop. Now we've removed the board from our feet. I want to be able to still keep my drop footwork. And as I attack, I want to use my platform or my dot series right in the middle of those dots to be able to place first step and ball as I attack off the spot. So this is our dribble step breakdown, starting with our drop footwork. Let's take a look at it. Work both sides, making sure that our timing is correct. Now, for a player who likes to toss it out, they're not going to hit that board. So if you can place the ball right in basically the same place of your feet, you have maximum protection and you have phenomenal timing on the way to the basket. That's your dribble step. It's a concept you need to master. When working on your dribble steps, it's really important to understand that you need to have the ability to sync up your dribble step whenever possible. It's really going to open up your ability to finish at the basket, which we'll get to later. So what we want to be able to do right now is have the ability to use our turn pound, which we've already worked on. But if you notice that, if I do a turn pound, I led off beat. I led with my right step. So now I have to have the ability to really sync myself up to get my dribble step back intact. Because if I don't have that timing and I'm off, I will lose the opportunity to possibly shoot right here. That's why that dribble step timing is so important. Is I can literally take my dribble step and be in rhythm for my shot, where if I push the ball out ahead or I miss it, I'm not going to be able to have that shot opportunity. And so dribbling, the act of dribbling, actually opens up more options. So this is a little bit harder because I need 2 dribbles inside a small space to sync up my dribble step. Let's take a look at our turn pound into our dribble step. Now all we're doing right now is working on the technique of being able to take that first step and really pound it down to the floor. And so that ability to really explode 2 dribbles in that spot is really key. Now when you can take that all the way to the basket on that move, you'll start to feel the rhythm of continuing that drive. We're just in the breakdown mode, so you can start to piece that timing together. Once you've really learned and mastered your dribble steps, now take it more on the move. Now we're showing you in a controlled environment, in the lab, of how you can master these things. You can always take these boards or place your dots on the floor to hold yourself accountable to a basket as well. but there's something about staying inside here that really just helps us engage in the details that matter. And so we can use our drops, we can use our turn pounds, but now the concept is I need to sync up every dribble step along the way. And so if I'm in the right hand, I want everything to sync up with my left foot. Now, going slow, I won't be able to reach that point, but when you take multiple dribbles in the drive, that's about where my next dribble and my step should need to be. So as I speed up the process, I can sync it up and then get my finishes, whatever the moment of the game requires. Right now, I'm just syncing up that footwork in my dribble steps, and I'll go ahead and stop rather than finishing. Let's take a look for our drops and our turn pounds. Making sure my foot and my ball hits the platforms at the same time or around the same time. And that will start helping you piece together the timing of your drives and start mastering the timing of your footwork with your dribble steps. Right foot or right ball with left foot, or left ball with right foot. If you were to take a look at players doing zigzags up and down the floor, without exception, you're going to see the same set of footwork. It's just what players have naturally given themselves as they've done that simple drill. A skip is what you're going to find them doing. A skip is planting one foot to reposition yourself into another set of footwork. So a skip happens off of your inside leg. The player would plant their inside leg and they'd zigzag. They plant their inside leg and they'd zigzag. So we're going to work on that skip technique, but we're going to take it to another level so you really understand what that is. And so we're going to do a skip to a split. So right now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to walk or maybe even run the ball onto the floor. But what I want you to notice right now is I want to sync up the timing. I want to sync up foot and ball in that same spot. And that now will allow me to skip into my split where I'm trying to regain my consistency, my width, and explode in the direction that I choose. And so right now we're going to work on getting ourselves onto the platform, skipping into our split, and taking off. Let's take a look. And that's our skip into our split. Trying to be as consistent as we can, controlling our space and exploding. Now, a skip to a split is a relatively common set of footwork. It's the other options you have to be able to master. And so now, if I plant that first step, and I see that I might have this driving line, I can reposition a skip into a drop. The hard part there is I have to bring the foot that I've distributed the weight to behind me to be able to explode. So now I'm going to be able to change my driving line, stay in my drop position, and go. So this is our skip into our drop. Let's take a look. Just reset and go again. Run into it, drop, and explode. And that's our skip into our drop. Now, just for the sake of time, I'm still just showing one direction. When you go the other way, just make sure you're syncing up right foot with left ball before you do your drop or your split. When I was performing my skips, my rhythm was always on beat. That was the natural movement of the ball. I would take my step with my right dribble, I'd take my step with my right dribble, my left foot and my right foot were connected, and then I could perform my skip. An inverted skip is going offbeat. Now the advantage of an offbeat is that it's more unpredictable, and I can actually cover more space between my dribbles. A defender is not going to necessarily be ready for the rhythm of that move. When I did my skip to my split, I could plant this foot and change directions. Well, that's a relatively normal action for a defender to guard. They're expecting that. But if I was able to go a step further, so I have my dribble rhythm and then I take one more step, in this position, my defender is no longer expecting this. They're now trying to cut me off, and now I can split and go. So that's my inverted skip to split. And so we're going to take one extra step in between dribbles as the ball floats and bring our ball through our legs. This is a more advanced version. It takes a lot of timing and rhythm to learn this. Let's take a look. Now, once again, I'm trying to really take full steps. That board is key. If I don't have the platform there, players tend to take this step. And now it's not really extending my defense, it just looks like I'm stopping. And so if I can step all the way here, now it just simply appears like I would continue my drive. So if you're looking at this from a slower view, if I was to take the dribble with a step, this would have been where my next dribble was placed. And so all I'm doing offbeat is being able to sell that direction before I split and go. That's your inverted skip to your split. We've worked on our skip to split. We've worked on our skip to drop. We've now worked on our inverted skip to split, so naturally we need to be able to do our inverted skip to drop. And so the hardest part about this is the ball is floating long. It's in the air for a longer time, so we're at a carry risk. So you're going to have to really take care of the quickness of this. But before we dive into that, let's just simply discuss the topic of carries. I want you to understand that the game has changed. You're getting away with more now. Ball handling is easier. And so a lot of times, even a pocket, some people would say would be a carry. Well, they got to kind of move with the game. Because if you count the number of pockets that are happening in the NBA, in college, and in high school, you're realizing that the pocket is simply part of the game here and internationally. But we can't overdo it. We can't come underneath it. So when we do our inverted skip to drop, we've got to be quick with the movement. So here's the footwork. I'm running on the go. I have my dribble step, my one more step, and if I like what I see, I can now get right into my drop and explode out, making sure my footwork is hitting those dots before I drive. Here's our inverted skip to our drop. Real quick footwork on those dots. And that's our inverted skip to our drop. Making sure I can stick that footwork right in our spot, pocket the ball, and explode. Now, if you notice, our footwork platform is a minimal space. We're really controlling our environment right here. Because if I want someone to be in that space, this is going to hold them accountable to controlling that. So if they're going to run and stop, for instance, we want them to run and stop in the space that we're requiring. So we're going to work on our stop abilities. So we're going to work on our speed stop and our hand exchanges. Now, all we're going to do right now is start off with our drops. Now, you've probably seen, as we've done our footwork, that I've continued to slam on the brakes and stop in different ways. Now we're going to work on those ways with some accountability. So if I start with a drop and I explode to the board, to the platform, that's a 1-2 inside-outside speed stop. I want to be explosive to that stop. Right now, I'll just pick up the ball as if I'm going to shoot. But I should be able to control my space. I still have my dribble step as I'm attacking it. And so if I'm going right into it, I extend right to the platform for my pickup. Now, well, the beauty of this is however far I want to drive, I can do so from different distances. So if I want to go ahead and step off to the left or step out farther back, I can stretch my dribble steps and start extending. Same concept, feet and ball have to hit those spots. And those are your speed stops covering different spaces. In the topic of speed stops, it's extremely important that you as a player learn to master your stopping. I always tell players the two most common things you're going to do in the game of basketball is go and stop. Now, we're used to running, we're used to going, but usually players have weaknesses in their stop game. They haven't really trained themselves to slam on the brakes. There's a couple reasons for that we could get into. One of them is that it's often taught them to come to jump stops so young because it's so easy to teach and it's so easy to manage. But what happens in the game when they need to slam on the brakes if they've never practiced it? So we're going to work on our hand exchange stops, which is still continue to work on our stops, but also maintaining our ability to be a weapon to change directions. So often when we come to our stops, we just leave the ball on this side of our body. However, if someone is cutting me off, I want to have the ability to possibly change hands as I stop, so if my defender ran past, I have a new angle. And so we're going to work on hand exchange stopping, which is the ability to change hands not after we stop, but during our stop. So I'm going to have to sync up my dribble step and my second dribble, all in my controlled space, which is every dribble synced up with every step. We're going to look at it 3 different ways. We have a crossover. We can bring it into a through the legs hand exchange stop, and we can get into a behind the back hand exchange stop. All 3 of those can become really handy in the game, and you need to work on your ability to do all 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. And so there's your crossover, your through the legs, and your behind the back hand exchange stops. Using the platform as our stop space. Hold yourself accountable with it. When it comes to the concept of timing, specifically when it refers to traveling, there's really a gap in basketball skill development. You can even see it in games that you watch when broadcasters talk about how many steps we're taking and completely forget that it's not about how many steps you take, it's about when you've picked up the ball in relation to the steps that you take. And so often players can squeeze in more steps in between dribbles, and it's perfectly legal because the ball is live. The example that I often use is I can shuffle my feet all I want between dribbles, and it's very difficult to ever determine if that was a travel because the ball is still live. And so I can get away with 3-4 steps simply because you can't have a starting point of when my steps counted if I haven't really picked up the ball or at least brought my hand underneath it. And so that knowledge will free you up to really understand how to take multiple dribbles or multiple steps in between your dribbles. And so we're going to work on our floats on the run. And so as I attack, I'm going to float the ball up, let it be in the air because I can pound it down at any time. But as long as that ball is live, I can take steps. And so we're going to take multiple steps between dribbles. That's the concept of floating on the run. And so right now what I want to be able to do is give myself some distance to my platform. And after I make my first dribble, I want to get in multiple steps to my stop. So we're going to see how many steps we can squeeze in there as we attack that platform for a speed stop. Just focus on letting the ball float in the air. And that's floating on the run. We'll have to look back at that and see how many steps were actually taken. But I can guarantee you it was more than 2. And I can guarantee you that that was legal as long as I didn't come under the ball and carry it. That's floating on the run. Exaggerate that a little bit and see how much space you can cover between your dribbles. Let's explore our drag footwork and really make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to the right types of lines. And so right now, if I'm going to beat you, I need to step outside your stance. So this dot will hold me accountable to staying wide. Obviously, if you're guarding me, I can't step here. That's where the middle of your body is. And so I'm going to keep my feet locked to the back dots. I'm going to punch the ball down as I step forward. That's my drag. A drag means I'm leaving one foot planted behind me. Now this is a drag step. There's at times where we can work on drag stops, which is very similar to this, but it's on the run. But right now, I want to be able to punch the ball down as I step. Now the big focus here right now is that every time that I pound, I can get my foot back to the dot as I take another dribble. And so right now, we're just going to stay focused on hitting right outside the platform right now in unison with my step on my drag step. So I want to be able to step, punch the ball, and pull it right back to my body. So pound it. I want to be aggressive with feet and hands. Really attack the dot just like I'm attacking the floor. And make sure my foot is returning back to that wide stance. So these are just simple mechanics, but you'll be amazed at how often you might want to step inside. We want to stay wide in our stance as we attack those dots with our drag. That's our drag step with a punch dribble. Once you've established your drag step, we can do a drag under dribble. Now an under dribble is being able to step to that same place, but instead of punching down our dribble, we can float the ball, we can float it, and then go under our leg. Now it gives us a little bit of a sense of timing. I can get you off balance and then return the ball. But I want to put an emphasis on your ability to be aggressive with your dribble. And so don't just pass the ball through, I want to rip the ball through. And so right now we're going to keep everything in front of our body in our dribble. I want to tap the dot and rip it on our leg back to our other hand, and I'm going opposite. So punch your feet, or attack the dot with your feet, float the ball, rip it through your legs. So that's our rhythm. Work on establishing your stance, making sure we stay wide. Attack with your feet, be aggressive with your hands. That's your drag under dribble, making sure we hold ourselves accountable to those details. Once you've learned your drag under dribble, now we can perform a switch. Now, the concept of a switch is going from split to split. Now, this is why it matters so much. A lot of times when a player decides they want to switch hands or change directions, let's say they did a drag and then a under dribble, they would simply see their opportunity and try to explode off that foot and go. Now, if you notice what happened there, if my defender leaned, but maybe they're crowding on the side, I don't have a lot of space. They're right here. So if I try to step, I'm really stepping into them. So I don't really have much of an advantage. Remember, they didn't just shoot way over here. They're not horrible. They just slightly leaned. Now, if I can drag and then switch as I pocket the ball, now I have an advantage. They're still here, but I have a little bit of space because I kept my space, and now I have a line that they've given me. And so that's why we want to be able to switch our stance, but using our switch, to keep our space and attack the opposite direction. So right now we're going to focus on a drag, under dribble, switch, and go. Let's take a look. Start off on those dots, stay wide, make sure that my feet are going from corner to corners. Drag, under, switch, and attack. And play with your pace when you do that too. You can go quick through your legs, quickly drop, switch, and go. Or you can take your time and change that pace up. Either way, the footwork stays the same. That's your drag, under dribble to a switch. We've touched on dribble steps. We've gone over drags, which is the ability to leave one foot staying behind. But really what you need to understand is the importance of all this stuff as we tie it all together is the ability to maintain options. One of the reasons why we talk to dribble steps so important is because the ball stays with my body. Anytime I push it away from my body, now I am locked into that commitment. Where if I keep it by my body, I always have the ability to pull myself back. So we're going to work on our inverted drag. I'm going to start with my drop. I'm going to get to my platform, but if I want to have the ability to pull away, right now I can bring it right through my leg and return to my spot. So we're combining our dribble step off of our drop with an inverted drag by leaving one foot behind us to recover. This is going to keep your options open. For reference, take a look at the great Allen Iverson and how he uses inverted drag. But this is a very, very common move in the highest levels of basketball, and you can use this platform and system to start working on it today. Let's take a look at our inverted drag. So mix up your rhythms with that, mix up your moves, just make sure you can slam on the break of that dribble step and return the ball through your legs back to your original place. That's your inverted drag. It's going to take some work. This game is extremely, extremely detailed if you haven't noticed by now. There's so many nuances and techniques that you can bring into your game, like we've said before, and stack your skills. Stack your skills and your habits, you have more options. And so we've worked on a drag with a punch, and I dribbled again when my foot got back. Now that would be normal. But a reset step is a different technique. A reset step is the ability to bring your foot back while the ball still floats. Now here's the difference. If we slow down the moment in time of when I dribble, what you're going to find is I'm waiting for the ball to come back up where my foot is in that position. So I'm not ready to be a threat. But if I'm able to float the ball here, now we pause this moment in time. From this moment in time, I still have all my options. And so a reset step puts me in this stance, possibly even this stance, to float the ball and read off my defender. So right now, I want to start off with a wide, bring my foot back as I float, and I'm going to turn, push back to that dot, and explode off with 2 steps. So this is a reset step, turn, push, go on this move. But notice, every single time, my dribble and my feet are going to be hitting that dot, starting on the back row. Let's take a look. Really try to pause with that float. trying to stay above the ball, behind the ball, just not underneath the ball. And that's our turn push out of our reset step. Biggest thing is don't dribble as the ball comes back. Float it for more options. So after you've gotten your reset step into your go, now we're going to add our different options. Because once you have that float down, now you just simply read what you have. So if they don't respect it or they shift, you can now do a split. So now we're going to do a reset step split to an attack. Let's take a look. And that's your reset step right into your split. Try to gain consistency each and every time. The last option we're going to work on out of our reset step is a reset step foot replacement. Now, the key of a reset step is to keep my options available. But if I decide I want to shoot, I might not necessarily be in a position where I have good rhythm to shoot. And so there's nothing wrong with a foot replacement to help gain my rhythm and to get some burst off the floor. So I don't have to pick it up here. I can wait and replace my feet as I pick it up later. And so the technique is being able to step, bring my foot back. Doesn't have to go to that dot, just where I would possibly want to shoot it. But right as I'm picking the ball up, I pick up both my feet and slide them to where I need them, right underneath my hips to where I want to shoot. That's your reset step foot replacement. Let's take a look dribbling both ways. There's a rhythm to this. Read your defense. And that's your foot replacement out of your reset step. Give yourself some time to make a decision and then react with the replacement of your feet for the shot. Let's continue to work on stopping. Creating space through stop separation. See, you can create space in multiple ways, but one of the easiest ways is you stop, defender doesn't. I stop, you don't. That's key. That's space, that's stop separation, a great way to create easy space. And so if you can't stop quickly, you don't have stop separation. If you have to stutter your feet and start to slow down, your defender just slows down with you. So we just want to simply learn how to slam on the brakes. A drag stop is slamming on the brakes with your outside leg, and right now we're going to do it in rhythm with our punch dribble. And so I'm going to punch the ball down as I stop. So if I'm going to do a drag, I'm going to stop, right foot, right ball, right on that board, and my drag foot stays behind me where I can drag back to. So that's our drag stop. We're going to look at it going both ways. I'm going to start with our drops, continue to work on that split, and then attack into a stop. Let's take a look. That's a drag stop. Really timing your footwork and your space and being able to put ball and foot together, let the defender go by, you make your read. Another stop technique that we've worked on out of steps is our under dribble, which takes place out of our drag. So if I come to my stop, but maybe I don't want to pound the ball down, maybe I want to start changing directions, I can make that stop, let the ball float, and then drag under my leg. Now we're controlling our environment, making sure that every step in our drag and every dribble is right on this platform before we go ahead and change out of this move. And so right now, all I want to see you do is be able to stop and drag out of that platform and that accountability. Let's take a look at that stop. And that's our under dribble stop on the platform. That's where you need to stop and slam on the brakes. We're going to work on the concept of finishing at the basket without actually finishing at the basket. We're going to work on the techniques required to be a finisher with your feet without actually needing anything to showcase that actual finish. And one thing we're going to understand is we've marked our paint with our platform right in pretty much the middle. This might be a little bit more towards where the midline would be in the paint. But what I need you to understand is the purpose and the reasons why you want to be able to jump from this moment in time. Because a lot of times players will go too far. They'll take a step past this, and they've gone so close to the basket that they're now in a much more difficult place to finish. There's shot blocker interference. There's a lot of difficulties there. Not that that's wrong. Obviously, there's times for almost everything in this game, and so we need to be prepared for anything. But let's start training for an earlier jump. And so we're going to work on this in a couple different ways. We're going to work on a first step finish and a second step finish. The second step finish is our common finish, so we're going to start there. So on second step finishes, we have to have the ability to drive and take our full 2 steps. Very difficult to show slow, so I'll speed it up so you can see what I mean. If I take my full 2 steps on my actual pickup, on a 1 dribble drive, I'm going to pick the ball up, and I'm going to be able to finish jumping off my last step before my finish. So what I mean by 2 steps is I might have picked it up here, and I have my second step to jump and finish. That's what would be natural on a 1 dribble drive. Let's take a more live look at our 2-step finish, 1 dribble drive out of our drop, where we should be jumping off of our right leg, which would be my normal step on a left-hand drive. Here we go. That would have been our finish. Right now I just want to make sure that I can effectively jump in that moment in time. And obviously, you could control that a little bit more and see if you can freeze on that jump step. That would be taking the full 2 steps I'm allowed for my finish. Now, as we continue our finishing off of this platform, we've kept the platform in the same place of the paint because this is still the place that we want to be able to jump off of. This space might not necessarily change, so my feet have to be able to react to different circumstances. So we took a 1 dribble drive, which is a great prediction of jumping off my right leg. But if I'm taking multiple dribbles, my space shrinks quickly, where now this would have been my first step. So if I wanted to take a second step, I've gone too close in this situation. So a first step finish is your ability to jump off of your first step rather than taking your whole allotted amount of 2. And so this is extremely important for you to understand, especially as you get more and more advanced, to be able to jump at the right times rather than being able to jump off the so-called correct foot. And so right now it's the correct foot for the moment that matters. So we're going to go first step finish off of a 2 dribble drive, starting with our drop footwork. This finish could be with either hand depending on the situation in the game. Just jumping off of that first step. And that's, once again, a way that you can stop each of those series, also focusing on just being able to control that last step. Freezing shows you that you had control before the jump. That's our first step finish. Obviously, we could have taken the full two if we had the space in that situation. Now here's the power of being able to jump off of your first step in a finish. If I'm driving and this is my first step, we call that first step your action step. In other words, once that step has been made and I've picked up the ball, now I have actions that I can choose. I can choose to jump, I can choose to take my second step to get to the basket, and I can choose to euro or sidestep my defender for another option altogether. But if you don't know how to jump off of this foot, you probably aren't going to be consistent with the other options. And so we want to be great at being able to pick up the ball on my first step and then change directions, which would be called the Euro step, to the second platform. So I'm giving you a lot of options today of how to use multiple platforms. If you only have one or just dots laid out, then just pick and choose where you want to place them for this. But this is a maximum accountability for phenomenal footwork. Let's take a look. Use those platforms to give yourself the right space in the game. Change up your pace and just play basketball. So wherever you do, whatever your action is, wherever your hesitation is, just make sure you have the ability to pick up the ball in that moment in time so you have that second option. That's your Euro step off of two dribbles. Let's take a look at a foot crossover for our finishes. Now what a foot cross is the ability to cross over without your dribble. So during the pickup of your basketball. Now, you can do this from multiple angles. We're doing an angle that will just help teach it right now. But you can do a foot crossover from many spots of the floor. The concept of a foot cross is wherever I might stop. So we're going to do a skip to a jump stop to set this up. I'm going to skip and pound during a jump stop. What I want to be able to do is pick up the basketball as I cross over my outside foot. So I might swing the ball over, pick it up there, and I have one more step to actually get my finish. So right now, we're just going to hold ourselves accountable to the pickup point. What's amazing about having this type of accountability is it's very, very easy for a player to learn how to have that footwork without mistakes. A lot of times, it's just a hard concept for players to grasp. But if you have a great visual, the body tends to teach itself. So we're going to get to our stop, do a foot crossover, and get into a finish off that second step. Biggest point here is making sure that I'm picking the ball up as my foot crosses over to the platform. It's a great way to change directions. It's a crafty way to finish at the basket. And that's a foot crossover, using the platform as your accountability of where you want to cross the foot over to, where we want to pick the basketball up. And then we can get to the rim for our finish. Two common ways to stop for finishing at the basket would be jump stops and pro hops. Both are very similar, but they have vast differences in actually performing them. A jump stop is probably the most comfortable way to stop in terms of teaching players. It's the easiest to teach. It's probably the easiest to perform, but it's way overused because players don't have multiple weapons. However, nothing can be thrown out. You need to work on your jump stop and understand how to control your space. So let's just break down a jump stop for a second. A jump stop is best performed, most commonly performed off of a skip. We already know that a skip is an inside leg repositioned to a second set of footwork. And so I'm going to skip off of my inside leg, and I'm going to land on 2 feet on the platform. This is a great way to control space. Now, a jump stop generally doesn't cover a lot of space. We want to be able to just simply stop as close to the spot as we are. The disadvantage of a jump stop would just simply be it's very difficult to stay in the same spot that a speed stop would provide us. So I'm always going to lose a little bit of space by doing a jump stop. So let's minimize that with some accountability. So I'm going to drive and perform a jump stop, making sure that I know exactly where I want to stop. Let's take a look. It can be giving me a shot or a floater. I just want to stop. And a jump stop also gives me the ability to pivot. That's one of the advantages of it. So use the platform to hold yourself accountable to space to stop in, picking the ball up as my feet hit the platform. Once you've worked with your jump stop, now you need to be able to add your pro hop. Now, the difference between a pro hop and a jump stop would be the space that you're covering. While a jump stop covers minimal space, a pro hop can cover maximum space. I'm creating separation through space in the air. And so the keys of a good pro hop are where you pick the basketball up. If you pick the ball up too soon, you cannot jump and land again. That would be a travel. So I want to pick the ball up as I'm landing, or as close to it as possible. But I'm using the pro hop to actually change directions right now. So my biggest key right now is just simply landing on my platform, but I'm driving towards the middle and changing directions off of that skip. Let's take a look. Landing on that board, I can be ready to finish. And that's our pro hop. Change up your directions, change up your angles, make sure that you're covering maximum space and landing where you want to land. There are so many ways to stop and finish at the basket. This is our power stop. Now, a power stop is a way that we can slow the game down, we can use a skip to reposition our bodies, and we can put ourselves in a type of position, outside, inside foot, where I can power up, sealed off to my defense, and explode in that direction. It's a way that I can use my jump to actually change direction. So right now, we're going to work on just a long way of the platform to really give us just some accountability of where I want to jump from. It's not about the dots right now. It's just about covering the space. I want to be able to make sure that I extend my steps, load up, and finish towards the basket. Now, from a footwork perspective, I want to be able to drive, and I'm going to use my inside leg, my skip, to load up right into my power stop. And from that position, I've sealed them. Now I can explode towards the rim and get my finish. Let's take a look at our power stop. This technique really lets me turn my body and stay shielded from the defense. And I can load up and jump from there. You see a lot of high-level players. Kyrie Irving might be the best in the world at a power stop finish and be able to get creative. But it's a phenomenal way to skip into that stop, load up, get some contact, and get a basket. way to stop and finish at the basket would be with what we call an extended stop. Now, the problem with some athletic performance training is that players are always jumping or working on their legs from a shoulder width up and down type of position, squats and so on. Now, that's obviously building our leg strength and a lot of characteristics, but what's also missed oftentimes is the ability to jump out of staggered stances and especially be able to cover space forward. And so I see a lot of layup lines in the game of basketball. I see people jumping off one foot, and I see people finishing off of normal jump stops. But what you don't see in a layup line is probably the most explosive form of finishing, which would be extended stop finishes. In other words, instead of me planning with a speed stop, which is best equipped for me jumping up, an extended stop is allowing my second step to completely go forward, putting me in a staggered launching position where I explode forward, up, and out. There's a lot of reasons why this hasn't been developed. Oftentimes, kids are taught in rules of jump up and not out. We want to be able to do both at times. This game is situational. And so this is an explosive, fluid way to finish. And so I'm going to use the dots to help me learn the pattern. I want inside foot on the first corner. I want outside foot to hit the last, as close to those as I can, and I want to be able to explode up. For the sake of just my atmosphere now, I'm just going to work on stopping and feeling like I could have exploded from that position. Let's take a look at our extended stop. That would be my position to load up and jump. And maybe in my younger years, I would have rose up and dunked that, who knows. But we're trying to get to our extended stop right in this position. If I miss the dots here, I'm okay with that. I'm just trying my best that I can to extend it and hold those as accountabilities. But what I don't want to see is hitting these two top ones. This is to jump up. This is to jump out. That's your extended step. Work on that full speed for maximum explosion. Once we've come to our stops in the paint, we have to have the ability to have proper pivots and understand angles when we are pivoting. So we're going to focus on some pivots at the basket, which we call rim pivots first, which would be pivoting towards the rim. Now, when we do a step through, our goal is simply going to be to get to the spots. We're not really so much worried about the dots anymore. I want to attack the middle of this area for my pickup. Now I have my option. I could have maybe done a little baby hook with my left. I could have gotten to a shot, or I can step through and stretch past my defender. Now, what I'm doing is I'm aiming for icons. I'm aiming from middle to middle because I want to force myself to stretch. Now, what I can do now is from this position, I want to be able to jump off 2 feet off of those platforms. Now, in the girls' game, they allow you to do it the way the rule book is actually written, which would be jumping and lifting that pivot foot up as you go. In the guys' game, for whatever reason, referees don't call it according to specifically the rules, so they like you to jump off 2 feet, which would be both feet locking out, extending together. And so we're going to work on that type of way because it's the safest way according to the referees. So we're stopping and stepping through towards our finish. And that's our step through finish. Like I said, feel free to mix up your pace. Feel the game. Try different scenarios. Just make sure you can stop with your speed stop and then get your footwork from there. Now, if I'm driving to the basket and I have a shot fake off that speed stop, and I feel like I have some space between me and the defender, I can rip the ball through, I can step through to get past them. But if I feel crowded, if I have contact, if I stop and my shoulder has someone pushing into it, and I can feel that, now I don't have that option. Now I have the option to back pivot to that same place. And so the reason why our footwork platforms are made out of real wood maple floor is so you can pivot properly. So make sure that you can stop, shot fake, and back pivot, staying low so I can jump for the finish. Now, whenever we're dealing with this type of move, there's a lot of contact. So if you're able to stay low and keep your feet